Welcome to this edition of Labor Vision. I'm Bob Delaney, Executive Director of the Institute for Labor Studies and Research. Labor Vision, a production of the Institute, focuses on topics of importance to working Rhode Island families. We hope you enjoy this evening's edition.
When I say triple, you say A. Triple. A. Triple. A. When I say Trump's board, you say nay. Trump's board. Nay. Trump's board. Nay. When I say triple, you say A. Triple. A. Triple. A. When I say Trump's board, you say nay. Trump's board. Nay. Trump's board. Nay. What do we want? An election. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? An election. When do we want it? Now. My name's Marley. I'm a graduate student here in the history department. I'm also a member on the negotiations team. And I can tell you right now that we are extremely successful doing what we're doing. We're pushing the administration. Just a few weeks ago, all of their agreements presented to us excluded master's students who did researchships and teachingships. How do we feel about that? Yeah. Do we think master's students should be represented by a union? Yeah! Woo! Yeah! Well, guess what? Thanks to this organizing, they're back in the bargaining unit. So congratulations!
Hi everyone, thanks for being here. I want to talk about something very specific about unions, and that's international students. You know, many of us coming from, lots of international students. Many of us coming from faraway countries, we seek a better education in the US, and we leave behind a whole lot. We leave behind social networks, we leave behind friends, and we feel kind of perplexed, and we find it really difficult when we come here and realize that Brown expects us to advocate for ourselves as individuals. Brown expects us to be innovative. Brown expects us to be entrepreneurial, to get ahead. And that's not what we want. I've seen far too many international students struggle to even find the vocabulary to demand what we want. And that taught me something about Brown. That Brown, on the one hand, is a university that really, and in my opinion, with good intentions, solicits student input. It genuinely wants to know what we think. And yet it also wants a paternalistic relationship with us, where they grant us with their good intentions and their discretion. They grant us things that should be ours by right. And that's not what we want, is it? We want a union where these things are guaranteed, because even at a university like Brown, not one of us is too entitled, not one of us is too rich or too privileged to need a union. And that's why I'm here today, demanding that Brown give us the right to vote and give us the right to start a union. Thank you.
I'm Amber. I've been at URI for a couple of years. I study natural resources science. And I've been in the union, I've been pretty involved. So welcome to the family! So as GAs, our labor is systemically devalued, and we are conditioned to devalue ourselves. So, well, I don't know about other labs, but around here we do it this way. Sound familiar? It's a dog-eat-dog world, so to be competitive you need to be working 70 hours. Having an assistantship is a privilege. Maybe you should be grateful for what you have. Yeah, we're going to call BS on all that right now.
My name is Karen McIntosh. This is Tim Engels. I'm the business agent for USAW Rhode Island. Tim is the recording secretary of our union and a Brown graduate. Works in manuscripts for John Hay. Is a member of the, I'm sorry, you're not a member. You're an alternate. An alternate of the negotiating committee. I'm here with members of the library unit and others. We represent 500 plus facilities, dining, and library employees at Brown, and I've been doing it since 1982. Our union is very much in support of Brown graduate students in your quest for union status. We're all stronger when we support each other. Just today, Harvard graduate students, including my daughter, are voting under pre-Trump rules, and I saw the support they have gotten from other Harvard unions. It is so heartening in the face of anti-union climate that we are living in nationally that this is going on. We've been negotiating in the library for the past 8 months to find a way to preserve our bargaining unit, which has gone from over 90 people to 56 in the past dozen years. Despite Brown's liberal public face, the reality is they act much like any other employer in disrespecting the workers who are and aspire to be unionized. This is the time to make good on the democratic values Brown professes and commit to supporting employees who seek a collective voice on issues of importance to them. Let the grad students vote. And let library employees grow their union. And Tim, did you want to say anything?
I'll just say that there's nothing quite like solidarity. And so we can all appreciate the power of that, and I look forward to working with a Brown Graduate Students Union to make studying conditions and living conditions better at the university for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm Jim Parisi with the Rhode Island Federation of Teachers and Health Professionals. We represent 10,000 AFT members in the state of Rhode Island, and we're here in solidarity with you. My union represents public school teachers, school support staff, higher education faculty and professional staff, nurses and others who understand that it's by organizing we move everyone forward. Whether you're a public school teacher organizing because the buildings you have to teach in are crappy, or if you're an adjunct faculty member organizing because they won't even give you medical insurance, or if you're a school support staff organizing because the school committee wants to cut your important education programs, we need to work together to move things forward. Unions are so important to quality education, quality public services, and we look forward to the day when you join our family so we can support your causes, you can support our causes, and we're all better off.
Yeah.
On a personal note, I'm thrilled to be here. It's been about 35 years since I stood on the brown-green protesting something. Back then it was Brown's inability to support undergrads with tuition help. Today it's another fight, but it's all the same thing. I'm a fan of labor history. I know that unions predated the National Labor Relations Board. Collective bargaining predated the Labor Relations Board. There are millions of Americans in unions who aren't organized under the National Labor Relations Board, including all the public sector workers and public school teachers in Rhode Island and in this nation. I know the history. Brown needs to understand that as well. The NLRB is not the only path to unionization. The NLRB is not the only path to collective bargaining. We stand in solidarity with you. Keep the fight strong. We're with you. Brown University, change your mind. Support an election.
Thank you so much, Jim, for showing us really what's possible with union representation.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Julie Scara, and I'm a first-year graduate worker at the School of Public Health, where I'm pursuing a master's degree in epidemiology. And I got involved with the union campaign last semester. And so a big part of organizing is having conversations with my fellow master's students, building relationships, building a community with them, because that's really the foundation of our power. And not only is this building our power, but this is how we break the silence for the issues we're not talking about. And so having these conversations with my fellow master's students, we learned that not only has our tuition remission that we get for being teaching assistants or a research assistant, not only has it gone down over the past few years from 50% to now 10%, that's right, but we also get paid about 1/3 of PhD students often for doing the same work. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Jai Chavis, and like Marley mentioned, I'm an undergrad. And I just wanted to go into the integral role that grad students' labor plays on campus, and how integral that role is cannot be overstated. Grad students teach and run sections. They grade our undergrads' papers and exams. They're at the cutting edge of the research that's going on daily at Brown, whether that be in the sociology department or physics. And suffice to say, our professors would be utterly lost without grad student labor, and we as undergrads and the entire university would be lost without them as well. And no matter how you square it, grad students are workers, and they deserve the same rights to fight for protections, collective bargaining, and union representation. Grads deserve the right to unionize just like any other workers. Currently, the Brown University administration is trying to delay the union election as much as possible because they're terrified about the prospect of having more organized labor on campus that is even more capable of defending themselves against the administration's attempts to bully and silence dissent. But this fight, but this fight for union rights and even for the right for a fair election is far bigger than Brown alone. We must emphasize that Brown graduate students are not alone in this struggle. Brown grads are joining a powerful and recently labor movement that has recently seen massive resurgence in the country. On national scale, we've recently seen massive gains be made in the labor movement from the University of Illinois graduate students successfully striking for better wages, like Marley mentioned, to Tufts dining hall workers struggling to unionize, to West Virginia teachers striking across the entire state and winning pay increases for all public sector workers. These events give us a snapshot of what a union can do for workers in their communities, and these events have no doubt inspired grads to fight even harder for a union election recently. I know that the West Virginia teachers have definitely inspired me. And this is why I say that we must remember that Brown grads are not alone, that they can, will, and must be backed by the solidarity of other workers on campus and undergrads and the community members across Providence, and that's why I'm so glad to see other unions out here supporting this really important struggle. And grad students need this union election, like they do all over the country. But being in a union means being part of a labor movement that is on the offensive and standing in solidarity with organized and unorganized labor. For an injury to one is an injury to all. So I encourage all of you to not let this rally be the end of your activism, whether you're undergrads or grads, to continue the struggle for labor and human rights in Brown, in Providence, and in your hometowns as part of a national and international labor movement for the betterment of the 99%.
Hi everyone, I'm Sierra Kaufman, and I'm part of the Department of Earth, Environmental, and Planetary Sciences. We call it DEEP, so it's short. I grew up on the Shinnecock Indian Reservation. When I arrived at Brown for graduate school, it wasn't really what I expected. From other students believing that a reservation could be equated to a gated community, to a professor recently insisting that their incorrect usage of talking stick and talking circle were an honor to my culture, the lack of cultural awareness and diversity here was pretty hard to cope with. I am unable to anonymously voice my concerns as the current grievance structure relies on. As a member of such a small minority, all of my concerns, like the ones relating to Trail of Tears jokes told to me on my first day, can be traced directly back and leave me open for retaliation on my academic career. The talking stick and circle are part of an important and sacred ritual in my culture, which allows everyone, regardless of position, age, gender, or status, to have an equal opportunity and an equal voice. This is what this union is about. Banding together so that collectively we are able to be heard and acknowledged. I support our union for myself, for you, and for future graduate students that walk this path. Brown University, hear us now. Let us have a voice, let us vote, and let it be free, let it be fair and free of outside political influence.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of Labor Vision, where we bring topics of importance right into your living room. My name is James Parisi. I'm a field representative with the Rhode Island Federation of Teachers and Health Professionals, and I'm your host this evening. Tonight we're going to be talking about something vitally important to union members and community members in Rhode Island and particularly in Providence. We're going to be talking about contract negotiations in the city of Providence. And who better to talk about contract negotiations for teachers than the president of the Providence Teachers Union. I'm happy to let you know that we are joined today by Maribeth Callabro. Maribeth, thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
So before we talk about what's going on with bargaining, or what's not going on with bargaining as it may be, why don't we get a little bit of background? First of all, how long have you been a teacher?
This is my 24th year of teaching. I've been teaching in Providence for my entire career. I'm a special educator, and I've taught at Nathaniel Green Middle School for about 22 of the 24 years that I've taught.
Okay. And you grew up in Providence?
No, I actually grew up in North Providence, but when I started teaching in 1993-94, we had the residency rule, so I moved into Providence because I really wanted to teach in Providence. So I moved to Chalkston Avenue, and I lived there for several years, and then I moved to another street in Providence, and I lived there for another 4 or 5 years.
So it's a big union that you represent. About how many members do you have right now?
We currently have about 1,940 members.
And most are full-time teachers? You have some part-time teachers as well?
99% are full-time teachers, yes.
So people may think that being a president of a union that size would be a full-time job, but you actually spend some time in the classroom. How much teaching do you do? So
I am released part of the time. So my mornings I spend at Nathaniel Green co-teaching special education students in a regular ed setting. I'm there for the first 2 periods of the morning, so from 8 a.m. to a little after 10.
Yeah. So it must help with your credibility at the bargaining table when you talk about teacher issues, because you're still doing it every day.
I think it does. I think that it brings a different lens to the job as far as being a teacher at the school level. I had also worked outside of the school level for a couple of years doing innovation work for the RIFT and the district, and I worked as the evaluation coordinator for the district. But the money ran out, so I went back to my classroom.
So, what is going on with your contract negotiations right now, and more specifically, what is the status of your contract? Did it expire? Are you working under an old contract?
So we are currently on an expired contract. Our contract expired in August. We started negotiations a year ago, February. We are at a stalemate right now. The last actual negotiation session that we had, the mayor's team of 2 came to the table and basically said that they had offered us some salary increases and language changes, et cetera, and we were on the right path, and then he basically pulled everything off the table and said they could offer us nothing. So they offered us a 0% for this year, a 0% for next year, and I got a maybe, you'll get a 0.5% in the 3rd year.
Yeah, and that certainly would make you fall further and further behind other public school teachers in Rhode Island.
Correct. We're in the lower tier of public school teachers in the state of Rhode Island, comparatively speaking, in terms of salary benefits and stipends.
I know one thing that I mentioned to others, when I used to compare teacher salaries, 15, 20 years ago, you used to see not only Providence, but other urban districts near the top of what pay scales were. That's
Correct.
No longer true.
That's absolutely not true. We were at the top, and through multiple negotiations of multiple contracts, we've taken 0% for a couple of years. We took small percentages. We had a pay freeze. We had a step freeze. So we've done our fair share of concessioning in negotiations over the past years, and which has unfortunately brought us close to the bottom.
Yeah. So I'm not going to ask you to reveal any details about the salary offer, of course, but what explanation, if any, was given by the mayor's folks when they took things that were on the table off?
So interestingly enough, on January 3rd, the mayor talked about having a surplus for the city, $5 million surplus for the city. And on January 19th, when we met, there was no money for teachers. So I think that the reason they used was financial distress and the fact that there's no money in the city. I don't know how we lose $5 million in 16 days, except for either misinformation or mismanagement, but apparently we lost $5 million in 6 days. What I think happened, what I believe happened, is that we were basically put on the pay no mind list, and the mayor himself said on the Dan York show that he had a lawsuit pending with the firefighters, so he felt that was pressing, and he has binding arbitration with the police, so he felt like he needed to negotiate contracts with those 2 entities And I think that we were put, like I said before, on the pay no mind list, and he figured he would deal with us when he could or if he would.
So you don't have any sense that they have a sense of urgency in getting this contract
No,
resolved?
and I've said this before, I don't think there's any sense of urgency on the mayor's behalf for a couple of reasons. One, I think that we don't have binding arbitration. Two, we didn't get the continuing contract language at the General Assembly, although the General Assembly passed it overwhelmingly, and the mayor vetoed it. The General Assembly failed to come back.
The governor vetoed it.
I mean, I'm sorry, the governor vetoed it, and the General Assembly failed to take it up again. So we don't have continuing contract. We don't have binding arbitration, and I don't have any lawsuits in my back pocket that I could press upon the mayor to, force him to show his hand. So I think that, and I also think that he doesn't have any formidable opponents in terms of his mayoral race, so I don't think that having labor strife means anything to him at this point.
Now, you and your union did give the members an opportunity to express their displeasure during his State of the City address in Providence City Hall. Why don't you talk about that a little bit? Why, why that particular moment, and what was the message, or what were you trying to accomplish at that event?
So it was interesting because shortly after they reneged on the potential offers that they had put on the table, I received an email inviting me to the mayor's State of the City. And I found it to be ironic at best that I would be invited to the State of the City so that he could talk about all the wonderful things that he's done, including having a surplus, while he's telling us that there's no money. So I met with my executive board and I said, you know what, I think we need to show up at the State of the City. And I think we need to show up as a bargaining unit, not just as one individual or the board. The mayor has been heard to say that I don't represent what teachers say because teachers talk to him, and I don't have the pulse of my membership. He was also overheard saying that I would only bring about 150 people to the State of the City. Obviously, both of those statements were incorrect, significantly incorrect, if I might say, because we had about 1,100 people there, and I was proud to see all of the teachers that had come out. I was very grateful to RIFT and all of our affiliates, presidents, and their members who came out in support of us, the Teamsters, the Providence Police. We were very, very well supported in that endeavor. I just think that it was an eye-opener for the mayor. And I started speaking about 10 to 15 minutes before the mayor came in. And I did that strategically because I didn't want to speak at the same time as he did, but I wanted to speak before him and allow my membership to just feel like they could respond to me and what I had said to them prior to the mayor speaking. And then the rally took on a life of its own, and he was overspoken and overshouted, and I think, and I hope, he got the message.
Yeah. So shortly after that, I believe shortly after that, I remember hearing in the media that the mayor started talking about a transformational contract.
Yes, actually,
what's
it was
the story on that?
It was 45 minutes after the rally. He came out and he said he was looking to do a transformational contract, which was interesting because in the 11 months prior to that statement, we had never heard of the words transformational contract. They were never entered into negotiations. We never knew what they meant. And when asked and pressed, he clearly didn't have an answer or response to what a transformational contract is. And over the past couple of weeks, I think he gives little sound bites and dribs and drabs of what he believes a transformational contract is, but I don't believe that there is a cohesive plan for a transformational contract, whatever that definition is that the mayor has of it. The Providence Teachers Union has consistently and constantly been transformational in writing contracts. We have school-based autonomy in our contract. We have peer assistance and review in our contract. So we have a lot of things that are outside of the box thinking in our contract that currently exists. So I'm not quite sure what we're looking to transform.
Yeah. What is it going to look like going forward in the near future? You know, here it is, the spring. You know, we're in April by the time this is aired. What hopes do you have to get this thing resolved before the school year ends?
So it's my hope that we get back to the table and there's an actual conversation from the other side that is talking about realistic benefits and salary increases that were afforded to our brothers and sisters in police and fire. I don't think that we should be treated disparately. I don't think that we should have been put on the pay no mind list. Our teachers, after being fired all those years ago, showed up to work the next day. All of us showed up. And although we've been without a contract since August 31st, September 1st, our teachers are still showing up and they're still doing the work and they're still doing everything that they need to do to improve student achievement and what's best for kids. And that's why it was frustrating for me to hear people talk about the rally and how they thought it was in poor taste or whatever. But everything we do and everything we have done against this mayor and to show the community where we are in terms of negotiations has not been at the expense of children, and we're very specific about that. That's why we have not done rallies during the day. We have not done sick-outs or walkouts or any of those things. What we have done is we had a first rally, and there will be another one. I won't share when yet. I want it to be a surprise. But there will be other events, and I fully expect my membership, from what I hear on a daily basis, to participate in the manner and with the enthusiasm that they did to the last rally.
We only have a minute or so left, but could you talk just a little more about what you mean by disparate treatment? You know, the mayor treating teachers different than other workers in the city?
So our if you look at our contracts and you look at our benefits and our salaries, the fire department got a 5-year contract. We didn't even have a contract. The police got a 3-year contract, and the average salary increases for both of those is about 3.25%, and we weren't offered anything near that. We also pay significantly more in healthcare than both of our counterparts in police and fire. In terms of healthcare, and I just think that there needs to be some equity in the way that we're treated in terms of the seriousness of negotiations. Just because I don't have binding arbitration or, like I said, $1 million or $11 million lawsuit in my back pocket doesn't mean that we should not be taken seriously and have given respect.
Yeah. Someone who may want to call themselves progressive would be hard pressed to be a progressive if they're treating a female-dominated profession like teachers so differently than some male-dominated professions.
Correct. Exactly.
Maribeth, we're out of time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
And thank you for joining us for this edition of Labor Vision.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of Labor Vision. We appreciate your input and encourage your comments. Labor Vision can be seen on this channel 3 times each week: Tuesday at 7 p.m., Thursday at 8 p.m., and Saturday at 5 p.m.